11th or 17th, excuse me, to order. Approval of minutes of August 3rd. Motion by Mr. Fire, second by Mr. Fisher. Comments, corrections? All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries. There are no citizens here, so we'll move on from there. Construction update presented by Chris Hawley, Street Superintendent. Chris.
Good evening, everybody. I'd kind of like to start these off with a staff update just to let everybody know what's going on. And we had our second guy start today, which puts us at full staff for the first time in quite a while. So just to let you know that Dylan Grossland will be introduced at one of the Common Council meetings. There's a couple guys to introduce, so we're back at full staff. Notable accomplishments in the last 2 weeks. The Northern Hills subdivision is completed. So all we have to do is shouldering on North Hills and Wood. Fairview, 4th, Mulberry, 13th, and Locust all have streets have been topsoiled and seeded. Just needs the final lift of asphalt and shouldering done. We're working with American Asphalt on that schedule right now. And we'll be talking to them on Wednesday to see when they can come in and do the final lift of asphalt. Schmidt, between 14th and 17th, got milled today. There's very little ditching needed on this street, which is completed, but the ditching is completed, but still needs topsoiling and seeding. Butternut got milled this afternoon. The topsoiling and seeding is just about completed today. And that's getting shaped up, and we'll get the first binder coat sometime next week. 26th, Falco to Washington. Ditching and tiling is completed. Milling will take place tomorrow. A special note on 26th, Tom received a very nice compliment from a resident out there who lives on that stretch of road. And she just was praising the water department and the street division on what a wonderful job they did out there, accommodating the residents and answering questions for everybody. So it's kind of nice to get those compliments once in a while and pass it on to the guys. 25th has no ditching or tiling to do on that street, and that will also get milled tomorrow between Butternut and Felker. Hume Avenue will be the next project that the mill and replace crew will head to, and they're going to start that on Wednesday. Pulverizing for that stretch of road is scheduled for September 16th, and not as stated today in the memo. September 16th, Hume between Blodgett and Fillmore will be pulverized, along with Apple and Cleveland, Daggy to Palmetto. The gas company's in there right now. It looks like they're wrapping things up. And that will also get pulverized on September 16th. In the meantime, between those two projects, Kurt's crew is also fitting in some culvert replacement, new culverts and some ditching. And so it's working out well, the schedule right now between him pulling off one job, go do some new culvert sets and some minor ditching projects. And that leaves us with our overlay project on McMillan. That is progressing very nicely. Concrete work is about a week ahead of schedule. We think we might be done with the concrete on Wednesday. Going to have a staff meeting with Phil and Kurt tomorrow morning. And right now it's scheduled for an overlay on September 2nd. But if Phil is done by the end of the week up there, we're going to see if we can move that up a week for the overlay. And then we'll leave it closed for a couple days to get the painting done. Without the traffic up there. I don't know if you guys noticed, but 14th Street, the lateral for the new Superior Gas building was put in last week, and that got paved this morning and painted, and that's all opened up now. So 14th is now back open. The BMO Harris parking lot storm sewer damaged is scheduled in a couple weeks here. We got a company to come in and do a non-dig and do an entry into the pipe and put some bands in there. So that's scheduled. We ordered the bands today. Take about 3 days to get the bands, and we'll just have to see when they can come in and do that repair for us. So I was told to keep it under 3 minutes. So how did I do? So that's it for the construction updates.
Any questions for Chris? Okay, thank you, Chris. Next, we have Tom Turchie's, oops, go ahead, Chris.
Well, go ahead, Tom, and I'll do
We'll
the-
catch you, yeah.
Yep.
I know what you're gonna.
Yep.
Yeah. Tom Turchie, city engineer. Tom.
All right, our Cleveland Street project from Daggy Street to Cliff Central Avenue, Cleveland Street from Central to Walnut is now done. The only thing remaining on this section is pavement markings. The section of Chestnut that we did and Oak Avenue is now completed. The underground work is now complete up to the intersection of Pine Street on Cleveland. And we anticipate that they'll be grading and getting those next 3 blocks ready for concrete and sidewalk and curb and gutter here in not this week, but next week. So things are moving along pretty quickly here, and we're overall on task to get done by October 17th with this project. Vision Sewer is now back in town, and they will be resuming their contract. They were about 60% complete, and they are back to working in the city. The Oak Avenue storm sewer damage, we've gotten 2 bids for that. Reviewing those right now. We'll probably have a decision made tomorrow and working to get that repair completed, where we had a piece of corrugated metal pipe rust through, and we're having a sinkhole on Oak Avenue between Western and Ives. And then finally, the Veterans Parkway and Peach Avenue guardrail is now finished and rebuilt and complete after the accident we had a couple weeks ago.
Questions for Tom? Mr. Bargander.
Was the person that caused the damage, were they fully insured?
They had insurance on the accident form. That's all I know at this time. We will basically send them a bill for the labor and everything that goes with that.
And how much was the total damages?
I don't know yet. The county actually did the work for us.
Okay.
So we're waiting for the bill to show up.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, Chris, you're on. You've got a clean sweep you want to talk about.
Yeah, I'd like to announce the clean sweep. Every year, the Wood County hosts a clean sweep, and it's usually held in a different spot every year. I'd like to get it out to the public that this year it is on, the date is Saturday, August 29th. The time is at 8 to noon. It's out at the Marshfield Ag Research Station, and I believe that's the one out on Yellowstone, Dan, correct? And then the brochures, you can get brochures from the City Hall, Street Division, Second Street Community Center, and also I'm sure it's posted on the Wood County website along with our website. And something that's going to be different this year is the safety requirements. All residents must stay in the vehicles at all times. Residents should load all materials in their trunk, pickup bed, or trailer, and materials will not be unloaded from vehicles' backseat area. For a full list of the clean sweep guidelines, go ahead and you can stop by and pick up a brochure at any one of these places I had mentioned before, or go online, Wood County website or our website. We'll have this flyer out that you see in the packet tonight. I will announce this at the Common Council meeting also, and get another audience here. So just let you know, Saturday, August 29th, Marshfield Ag Research Station from 8 to noon, clean sweep.
Thank you. Any questions about that? Okay. Number 5, award bid for Southwest Interceptor sewer relocation project for Aquatic Center site, presented by Tom Turchie, city engineer. Tom.
All right, bids were open for the Southwest Interceptor sewer relocation project on Thursday, August 13th. We had 3 bids for this work, resulting with a low bid from Haas Sons of Thorpe, Wisconsin, the amount of $219,500. $219,590. We had bids from Haas Sons, Earth, and Pember companies. I recommend that the contract for 2004 Southwest Sewer Interceptor Relocation Project be awarded to the low bidder of Haas Sons Incorporated of Thorpe, Wisconsin, in the amount of $219,590 and authorize the execution of a contract.
I have a motion by Mr. Fire, second by Mr. Bargander this time. Comments, questions? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 6, approval of F-250 pickup truck purchase for street division, presented by Chris Hawley, Street Superintendent. Chris.
This will be our last vehicle purchase for the year. We do have one more equipment purchase that we're going to get some demos on a concrete saw, but this is our last vehicle purchase for 2020 that we had budgeted for. I've learned a lot in this position, and the one thing I did learn was as you get this time of year and basically the 2020 builds are done, and now they're into the 2021 builds. So Ewald, who has the state bid for all of these vehicles, can honor the 2020 prices. And I checked in with V&H the last 2 weeks, and Sam was having a difficult time getting Ford to commit for the 2021 or 2020 prices. So that's why I see Sam's V&H bid is a bit higher than the Ewald bid this year. But I assured him that come next year, we'll get this out in a more timely manner for him so he can be a little more competitive with the state bid. So just to give you a little background, Unit 93, we probably hung on 1 year too long. The frame is actually is rusted out pretty bad. We won't be able to sell it on auction due to that fact, so I'll probably go for salvage. That vehicle has 127,000 miles on it, and it's 18 years old. The city budgeted $40,000 for this purchase, below our 4 proposals. We did look at the Dodge, and it's very competitive with the Ford. In talking with our fleet supervisor and the mechanics, the one thing the Ford has going for them right now is they have the all aluminum body on them. So for our purposes, the all aluminum body, we keep them for 15 to 20 years is probably a better deal. The other thing we looked at, of course, was we checked out the fleet for police and fire, and of course they don't carry the F-250s that we need in our fleet to haul around our trailers and all our construction project stuff. So with that being said, I recommend the Ford F-250 state bid from Ewald and it's a 2021, but they honored the 2020 prices of $30,000 or $30,005. Do you have any questions?
Is that a question or a motion? Could I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Fire. Second? Mr. Rosendich. Okay, Mr. Bargander.
Thank you, Chair. Couple questions here. You're looking at a 3/4 ton pickup truck. And what I read, the uses of this truck, did you ever consider a 1-ton truck versus a 3/4 ton?
Yes, we currently have 2 1-ton trucks. One of them's relatively new. We purchased last year, and then this 3/4 ton fit in our fleet better than another 1-ton truck. So we have 2 1-tons in our fleet already.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
Also, I noticed the bids on the Fords, you're looking at extended cab truck, and on the Dodges, you're looking at a crew cab truck.
That's just the name that they use.
Well, actually, I looked it up, and a crew cab pickup is a full 4-door, and a super cab in a Ford is also referred to as extended cab.
Right.
Is that what you wanted, an
Yes.
extended cab?
Yeah, we wanted the suicide.
But when I look at these bids here, you look at it, and it says that the Dodge or the Ram pickup truck is a crew cab.
Right.
So, I mean, if you really compare it out, a crew cab is more expensive truck than an extended cab. So the difference in price, the Dodge seems like more attractive a price to me if you wanted to go with that. But I do value your opinion on the aluminum body, although we don't know what long-term effects going to have on aluminum for
Correct.
corrosion up here in this area. But I know that, a lot of these pickups the frames have been rusting out on them, not only Fords, but GMs too. So I do agree with that, but if you were, if we're not comparing properly, crew cab versus extended cab, there is a considerable difference in price. But if you're set on getting just an extended cab, that's fine.
Correct. And I think I did look at that, Mr. Bargander. I don't, and don't quote me on this. I'm pretty sure that the Dodge has got the full four doors, kind of like a Chevy does. They don't offer the suicide doors.
Well, right,
Right.
yeah. I'm a Ram owner, so
Oh, okay.
familiar with it. So on a Dodge, you'd have what they call a quad cab. That would be an extended cab with 4 independent doors.
Right.
Okay. And these, sometimes on this Ford here, sometimes those extended cab doors are referred to as suicide doors.
Yeah,
because they
exactly.
open opposite of the doors in front. So, but I mean, it would make sense to me that you would get an extended cab for this type of purchase versus a crew cab pickup.
Right. We currently have a Chevy 2500 right now. That's our shop truck that's got the full 4 doors.
Mhm.
And then what we're thinking about doing is rotating that into the fleet and then using the new, the new Chevy or the new Ford as the shop truck. So that truck then will be used to go to like snowplow rodeo and all these different classes and stuff. So along with being used as a all-purpose heavy-duty pulling trailer type pickup truck. So,
Yeah, I'm just concerned mostly, the difference in price between a 3/4 ton and a 1 ton probably isn't all that much. And if we could get more use out of it, probably be a better investment. But like you said, you already have some 1 tons in the fleet. So I'm good with this. I say we move ahead. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, discussion of street division space needs study presented by Dan Connect, Director of Public Works. Dan.
Thank you. I just wanted to have a brief discussion and follow up from the presentation last week. Kind of review the report recommendations, take any questions from the board, see if there's any additional information that is needed, maybe talk a little bit about our next steps. And then I do want to touch on how this might tie into the Second Street corridor planning, which we know is part of the big equation here. So I think what we learned is the overall approach was kind of three different scenarios. First, the consultant looked at what could be done on the existing site within the existing boundary and looked at a couple of different layouts that could be accomplished with that. Then they looked at what could be done on the existing site if more property was acquired, basically expand the boundary. And then compared those two things with a hypothetical new site for size and optimal layout requirements to see what, if this was a brand new location, what would that look like? And I think the key takeaway is that the existing site simply isn't big enough for the long-term an operation of the site or of the street division. But I think what I'd do first here is just quickly run through the options that were spelled out and refresh on those, and then open it up for any questions or discussions. And then, let me forget about a mention of the Second Street corridor planning that will be going on next year. So, and the first option was just reusing a portion of the existing garage and then demoing the rest of it and kind of rebuilding within the boundaries. This is what this option 1 looked like. Again, just using the west half of the existing building and essentially building new around that west half. It really compromised the site storage, and circulation is pretty tight around the site by trying to make use of the existing building. Option 2 was again reusing a portion of the building, but having separate buildings for different functions. So again, you see here the existing building, west half being reused, but rather than trying to add on new building all around it, distribute those buildings around the site, and that creates some other challenges with circulation and visibility and so forth. As you can imagine, these options using existing site within the existing boundary don't really accomplish the long-term goal of adequate space for the street division. The third option would be not using any of the existing buildings, phased demolition and an entire facility replacement with new buildings and so forth. And that looks something like this. Centrally located main building, it's all new, and then a separate salt shed and cold storage area. We're burning through these kind of quickly, but if you have questions, feel free to throw those out. the end here. And then option 4 was if we were to acquire some additional land, what would that look like? There's about an acre available in this southeast corner. I shouldn't say available, an acre adjacent here that would be, would square off our site. Again, centrally located main building, full storage, salt shed, and some on-site storage. This would take the acreage from about 5.8 to 6.8, the extra acre. And that all compares to a hypothetical site of, well, what would be the optimal size needed if this were a new site. And it would be a 10-acre site, essentially laid out in a rectangle, would be the ideal site scenario. The report did include a nice chart here that compared the options with the different square footages available in each option, parking availability, yard area, green space, so forth, and some cost figures on that. They applied some selection criteria to these options, and the ones that ranked highest were expansion of the existing site with the acquisition of additional property, and of course, new site ranked well because it meets all the parts. So the conclusions that the consultant pointed out last week, we knew the site was not big enough for long-term growth and operation of the street division. 10 acres is the optimal because it's got a cut out of the southeast corner that makes placement of a new building tricky. On-site storage, yard storage is restricted with any of the options. The option 4 with adding property is the best option for the being on the site. But all of the options that would use the existing site have construction and phasing issues that may or may not add costs. Get into those details and decide how they would be built. And of course, a new site accommodate all those. The consultant did offer some next steps. I don't think we necessarily have to jump into these just yet, but when the time is right, this is what the consultant would suggest, that to get a true comparison of an on-site option versus an off-site option, you could get into some more advanced planning for those sites with some construction phasing and more detailed cost estimating to get better comparison between the two. Then you would also look at things like stormwater impacts, if there's any soil conditions of contaminated soils and so forth on our current site of phase 1 investigations, tie it in with the community development area of 2nd Street corridor, and then look at a timeline on this. So I think our consultant took a half hour to do that, so I threw a lot in there at once, but I'd like to open it up to any questions, again, see if there's pieces that are missing, other information that you would need. I probably won't have the answers for you tonight, but we can work on those things as the process progresses. So,
Mr. Fisher, you had some questions.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually have several, so I don't know if you want me to ask them all.
Go for it.
All right. Well, there are a lot. So I'm going to put Chris on the hot seat if he can come up. Just in your professional opinion, Chris, of all the options that were listed, are there 2, 3 that you think would be most viable from an efficiency standpoint for the city of Marshall?
Yes, the third option to acquire additional land over at the existing site would be ideal. The one thing to note, and all 3 staying on site, is we lose the storage of all our materials, our catch basin supplies, and our culvert pipes, and our you guys seen that what we store there. We lose all that storage. Optimally, moving off site on a bigger site would be preferred, but if anything, if we were to stay there, I think we'd have to at least purchase the land to the east.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, one would be the additional land, the second would be the 10-acre new site. Would that also be?
Well, my first choice would be move off site.
Okay.
That wasn't viable to at least purchase additional property to the east.
Now, I think, Dan, you just said that it would be going from 5.8 to 6.8 acres. Now that you said the 10 acres is most optimal, my question would be, if we go to 6.8, what are we losing by not going to the 10? I mean, is there certain efficiencies that we're not going to have? I mean, what do we lose from a value standpoint?
On-site storage, being able to put the guys to work and going out and getting their supplies right on site. Wherever we end up having to put our supplies is that additional time to run out to wherever site that we choose to store this stuff. An efficiency timing.
Yeah. And I think I asked this when we were on the tour, but I just want to be reminded, was there ever, for lack of a better word, a master plan to the current site, or was it just kind of piecemeal together over the years and adding things to the property?
I think it was kind of piecemeal back from the very beginning. It was built in 43 and 66 was Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, was the main addition. And then after that, they started adding on cold storage and then the heated garage. And to my knowledge, I'm not sure if that was ever a master plan done. We did do a study back in 2017 that was kind of gave us an outline of the current conditions of all of our buildings and like a CIP project. You're going to have to do this in 5 years. You're going to have to do this in 3 years. You know.
Mr. Fisher, I have another question, and I'll come back to you.
Okay, that's fine. Yep.
Mr. Fire. You got the mic?
This is a generational project. Where are we on? We're looking at 10 years, 15 years down the road. I know we've got, the next one would be the police department. So this would be after the pool where we're a ways out before we're looking at even.
Yeah, that's a good question, Mike. Unless we somehow jump this one in priority, we're looking at this one following the police station, which we talked about staying on site and doing an expansion and renovation of that facility. And we generally haven't been able historically to look at doing these any closer than 5 years apart. That's what our financial advisor has said. These are big, dollar amounts. In fact, this one is bigger than many of the ones we've talked about in recent times. So I think we're probably looking a decade out. But again, I think we said this when the gentleman was here presenting the other night. The library, I think, was planned for 20 years, and some of the other projects have been a long time in the making. So it's good to start thinking about what we want to do, especially if it involves possible land acquisition or other types of things that have to be put in place in advance.
Mr. Fire, go ahead.
The other follow-up is, since Tom and I have been on this council, we've heard about the 2nd Street corridor, and eventually it's going to get developed. If we drop a $13 or $14 million project right in the middle between the ballparks and Chestnut, we've really ruined that corridor totally. And you were going to do that if you purchased the property. So I think the council has to think long and hard before we commit ourselves to a permanent site. Because this one was built in what, 41?
43.
43. So
The original
60,
building, yeah.
That's 80 years. So we're going to tie up that whole corridor for over 80 years. So that's a thought we have to think about.
Okay, Mr. Fisher, go ahead.
Yeah, and some of the questions Mike asked were some of the ones that I was going to ask as well. But I mean, I would tend to agree with Mike. I mean, right now, of all the options that I'm seeing, I'm leaning towards a new site. And part of the reason I'm going to share why I say that is if we're going to find that the 10 acres is the most optimal for efficiency, for service to the city, part of my question is why would we settle for anything less from an ROI? So if we're going to put 13 million in, and it's going to be 10 years out, and then we find that even then, 10, 15 years later, we're still finding issues with we don't have enough space. What are we doing? I think we need to be forward thinking and go, you know what, if 10 acres is the optimal size we need to service this city, I think we need to have that just visionary mindset, even though I agree with you, Mike, even taking the 2nd Street corridor out, I'm a supporter of the 2nd Street corridor, but even taking that out of the picture, why would we settle for anything less? So I will share that. But another question would be, so we're talking 10 years out, possibly, as I heard Steve. What issues could we face in the next 10 years? I mean, can we get by in the next 10 years with the current site the way it is?
Answer that or try to.
Yeah.
we have space needs already. For those of you that walk through the buildings, you can see how tight things are. But beyond that, we do have some improvements in the CIP. There's some roof replacements, one for next year, 2021, one the year after. There is an electrical service upgrade or replacement, I think, is what's in there now, because we've just like the site really hasn't had any good master planning until now. The electrical service has kind of been added to over the years, and so there's some back to the electrical service. And I think we talked about one other thing. Oh, the tuck pointing.
Tuck pointing, yeah.
Tuck pointing on some of the buildings.
Yeah.
Now, those all, if the buildings were going to be repurposed for some Second Street corridor need or function there, then the roofs and electrical service and tuck pointing are not investments that you would throw away necessarily, so that maybe there's some value in continuing that. Beyond that, as far as the space goes, I guess that would be the question, is how long can we live with the limited space that we have there, which might be hard to answer at this point, but.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
I've been here for 22 years, and I think the biggest thing we did back in 2017 was to take a look at our buildings and see the condition of them and kind of come up with a plan to try to not repurpose them, but keep them up to date so we can stay there. But you're right, Mr. Fisher, this is the first time we've actually overall looked at the big picture. And like Steve said, a generational project. It's in the hopper now. At least we spent that cash to get the study done for you.
Yeah. And I guess if I can follow up, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Barber's got a comment, I believe.
Whatever.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Mr.
All right,
Fisher.
yeah,
Sorry.
I guess the reason I asked this question is I don't want us to be nickel and dime over the next 10 years with failing buildings, failing property. And maybe that's inevitable, but has there been any conversations about the cost factor to what it would cost us, assuming that it's 10 years out? What costs will there be projected that we would have to deal with just to maintain the current site until we could, in theory, if the council wanted to do that, obtain a new site? Is that being discussed?
Chris, you have?
Yeah, I think that 2017 study kind of spells it out pretty good on what we would look for maintenance costs in the next 10 years or so.
I mean, I know I'm new and Quentin is. Could we review that at some point?
Sure.
Just so that some of the new aldermen could see that. I don't know if Ken has seen that, but I would like to maybe review that so we can have a better understanding.
Okay, Dan, go ahead.
I was just going to mention that we don't have the information tonight, but we certainly could bring that presentation back and refresh on what was the recommended improvements in the next 5 years. And I think it even went out as far as 10 years. Not everything in there would have to be redone. I think there was, carpet replacements and wall coverings and stuff like that, which if you're not going to be there the long term, maybe you don't do all that. But we certainly can bring that back and update on what we might be facing in the next 10 years. And just thinking about the space needs component to it, run out of more space, yard area, for instance, maybe there's other things we have to try to store off site, see what options. I mean, to be honest, the Baltus building that city acquired primarily for PD uses, we're actually using some space in that.
Yes, we are using some space, and talking with Rick shortly after they purchased it, we did some demoing stuff for them, and we kind of secured a corner where we can park some of our equipment, off-season equipment in their corner. We have yet to take advantage of that, but it's written down to meet up with Rick and Pat to secure our corner over there and store some of our stuff over there.
Steve, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on what Mike and Adam have both said earlier. I think it's a good time to be having this conversation now, because I know a decade seems like a long way away. But if there is some serious thought on behalf of the board and the council in looking at building somewhere else, I mean, if you think about it, as far as that sounds right now, we've got issues. I mean, we're talking right now about the, Weinbrenner's plans for the future. We just acquired the Baltus property. The community development folks would have to get going in terms of trying to see what might be possible there, whether it be, going back to the Second Street corridor plan the way it was, or seeing if there's other redevelopment properties or possibilities in that part of downtown. I mean, now is the time to start exploring those, even though I know it seems a long ways off. So if there is interest in having that one be part of the mix in the hopper, I think we'd like to know that, so we can at least be looking at what the development options might be going forward.
Mr. Fire.
When we talk about using offsite for storage and like product and pipe, we could possibly look at buying that piece of property and using that as just a storage spot that keeps, we might be able to want to pursue that along with this whole thing. If we could find a piece of property and then use that for offsite, and then we could extend the life of this until we can afford to build it. There's a lot of options here. I just don't want us to say, we're going to take this and build this and remodel this, and we should look at the whole big picture. We did that with the library, and we finally got that where we want. That was a battle. Everybody knows how that worked.
Mr. Fisher?
Sorry about that. No, I would agree with Mike. I feel like we need to really consider long and hard the possibility of a new site. I mean, when I start thinking between 10 acres being optimal and we're settling for 6.8, and I'm not an expert like you are, Chris, in your field, but I'm going, there's got to be less efficiencies when you start going down, 3.2 acres. And from my standpoint, I mean, for lack of a better word, we're a service organization and we're servicing the people of the city of Marshfield, and I want them to have the best services possible. And so if 10 acres is going to be optimal, and yet knowing that that might be 10 years, maybe 15 years out, my only concern is having a good financial plan of what we do with the current site. So I'm just going to, I guess, beat that dead horse one more time. I really want you guys to come back with some type of numbers to go, this is what it might cost us, give us a cost analysis of going, this is what it very well might cost you over the next 10 to 15 years just to keep the site where it's at. Because even just walking through on the tour, I mean, I kept thinking that there's a lot of liability if someone gets in an accident, just at the just the building itself, at the age of it, the stairs, if there's no elevator. I mean, there's so many things with that building that I'm going, what do we need to do? What do we need to accomplish? And yet still try to do it in the most fiscally responsible way. So I would like, if it's possible at a future meeting, no rush, but maybe even later this year, to see some type of cost analysis.
Did you have any other questions, Mr. Fisher? Okay, so could we just get a consensus? Mr. Bargander, go ahead.
I do have some comments.
Go ahead.
I agree that staying on the present location is going to be difficult because you're boxed in there. I mean, there's only one way to expand it, and that would be back to the east. And if we decide to stay there, we would definitely have to acquire that extra 1 acre of land. And we don't know what the cost of that would be. I'd rather spend that money going out maybe in an industrial area where the land isn't quite as expensive, use that to help offset the cost of acquiring a new 10 acre. It doesn't have to be 10 acres. It maybe should be 12, 14, who knows, don't limit yourself, I guess, if the land is available. So I'm definitely, leaning more towards relocating it. And as far as the Second Street corridor goes, I agree with Mr. Fire. If we commit $15, $18 million, whatever it's going to be after we acquire land at the present site, we're severely going to compromise or curtail the Second Street corridor expansion or redevelopment, I should say. I got a question for Dan. Does the city own any 10-acre sites that could be used now? Do you know of? Or would we be looking to acquire a 10-acre site in the city, or maybe looking at annexing 10 acres someplace to fulfill our needs of relocating the garage? I mean, that's that's a big question for you, but I guess that's what we're kind of doing tonight. We're hitting on the big questions and seeing if we can get some type of answers so we can move forward with this.
Right. I think we would, knowing where this discussion is going, we start to, pinpoint what some options might be, where we could find a piece that would be big enough. City-owned, of course, would be ideal. Off the top of my head, there might be a couple of options to consider in our industrial parks. Now, whether that's where we have a TIF district or something where you want a non-tax property in a TIF district, there's some trade-offs with that. But beyond that, we'd look at where else is there options, and kind of maybe create a list of possibilities. Then we'd have to see, do they meet the need, not just from a size component, but location, infrastructure availability, and all those things. But yeah, I think we would start looking in that direction based on this discussion tonight.
Go ahead.
So in follow-up, I guess we're sort of leaning towards relocating it. So I would say that, we should keep in mind that if something pops up that, we don't wait 10 years and say, oh, now we're going to relocate. Now we should be looking for property. I think in the next 2 or 3 years or something, if something pops up, we should be looking at making that purchase at that time, not waiting till the last minute and then say, oh, wow, now it's going to cost so many more dollars.
For the land you're talking.
Yeah, for the land. Yeah, I'm talking about the land. I mean, obviously we know that we're talking relocating and all that sort of thing. We're going to exceed the $15 million more than likely. So we could be 20 million, but like Adam mentioned earlier, the return on investment, yeah, it probably is the best choice. Invest a little bit more money long-term, see what we can recover off of the current site. That's, who knows, it may take us a long time to recover any type of investment off that site, depending on how long it takes to for the Second Street corridor to develop. So I think we have a good direction here. I think we should, I think the staff should be able to kind of, start pointing things in the right direction and something we can discuss with the full council, obviously. So thank you.
Mr. Rosendich, what's your take?
I'm really all about a new site, honestly. I mean, just walking through it a week and a half ago, the tight space, I think all that I'm hearing about the Second Street corridor, I'd like to see that a little more. I mean, obviously I'm pretty new and I don't have a lot of information on what that actually looks like, but I think we'd be curtailing ourselves to basically that Second Street corridor. And I mean, I think the overall development of that area and having a city garage right off of that isn't the best practice. But again, I think a new site, but I think there's a lot more information we have to have. And location and size of the land we can actually get, where, all those things.
I said when I had a conversation with Dan, I said I didn't want to dwell on the Second Street corridor necessarily. That's real, and there's no doubt about that. But just with the city garage where it's located, with everything that's been said here, to me, that's the wise choice to do it right. My theory always was, if you're going to spend a bunch of money, nobody likes spending a bunch of money, but do it right. So if it costs you a little bit more, you do it right. Mr. Fisher.
And I would agree in this case. I think where I'm coming from is, even at a 6.8 acres, what I'm hearing is it's not optimal. I'm hearing you could possibly get by, but where are we at in 10 years from now? Where are we at in 20 years from now? And what I don't want to do is spend $13 million in 10 years, and probably by then it's going to be more, and then find out 10 years after that, we're still in a problem where we're landlocked, we need more property. So this is one of those times we need to be forward thinking and have I think a new site in mind, a larger acreage. And I think, but I agree, I think what Ken said is, we need to be acting now, even though this is 10 years out. Now, it's not wait until year 8, 9 and go, oh, now we got to look at property. But let's start planning now so that we can really be looking. And I think, again, the cost analysis is huge for me. I just need to know what are we talking about in the meantime?
Mr. Fire.
One more thing. To sell this to our constituents, we need all the information we can stack on a pile, you know. We got to get all the information, why we need it, why we aren't going to do this, how much we're going to spend here, because down the road, you know, things are going to change in the next 25 years. I think that the more information we have, it's easier to sell it. Because right now, if you tell somebody right now that you're going to build a new garage for 16 million, they're going to, that's just like we're going to tell everybody in the county, we're possibly going 61 million for a new jail. If you want to see a shock, culture shock, there it is.
Mr. Barton.
Thank you. I usually don't talk this much at these meetings, so thank you. I appreciate the time. Just one more comment. I think you're asking all the right questions. Even if the Second Street corridor plan doesn't come to fruition the way it was once discussed, that northwest corner of downtown is ripe for redevelopment. And there used to be a game, I don't know if they still play it on computer, called SimCity, where you design your own community. And you never would intentionally design a downtown to have a street building with storage of plows and trucks in it. So I think it's a good discussion to have going forward.
One last comment from me is I remember talking about that site, and again, you got to do it right. It's been said here that let's not put a Band-Aid on this, and we've done that sort of with the police department. We did that, although it sounds like we're lucking out maybe to make it work there. But get enough land. I think Mr. Bargender, you said that, and Mr. Fisher agreed that you get enough for expansion, and I like the talk that we're doing. There's a lot of information that's got to come out yet, but I think we're on the right track. And Dan, or Mr. Fisher, go ahead.
I would just add one more thing. I think I agree with Mike as well. We need to be answering the question, what is the return on this investment? And if we're going to be spending 18 million, we need to help the constituents know that the 18 million, 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now, we will see greater efficiencies. And I think that's where we're going to need that from Public Works and the street department, for you to help us be able to communicate that information, because I'm not an expert on the street departments. But if you can give me the information to start to say, okay, with this 18 million, with this new site, these are the efficiencies that we will start to see that will actually be that return on this investment. Because there's going to be a sticker shock. I mean, there was a sticker shock last week when I saw the amount. But we need to be able to turn that dollar amount into, this is how it will actually impact you as a citizen of the city.
I think a big thing is what we got in the study is, we need much more information, of course, but if you look, I'll call it the Band-Aid approach, add on to a little bit on the street department by buying some property. You still don't have enough acreage to do it right. So what the amount that you pay, what they projected to pay if it was done now for remodeling, is pretty darn close to new. And I will say that property, Mike, you remember this, the property at the city garage, we had people telling us years ago that property was very valuable because it was along the parkway. And I said at the council meeting, we always get this where the old fire department, we were going to get X number of dollars, and we didn't get that. But, and other areas, and I don't know how you do it. I asked Dan how you get an appraiser in that's going to really be able to tell us closer to some of these projects. But I do believe that land's going to be worth quite a bit of money. So, but we have to explore all that and see. So, with buying new land somewhere else and then selling this, I think we might be surprised. Do you have any comment, Dan, on that? Go ahead.
I was just going to wrap up by mentioning that Josh Miller is working on a scope of work for the Second Street planning study. And he's hoping to be able to kick it off before the end of the year and get the bulk of it through the first 6 months of 2021. So we'll have some information on that. But I think as we said here, that's not necessarily the driving factor for this whole discussion here. We have the well-being of the street division and operations and efficiency, that's really the driving need here. the Second Street corridor is certainly a factor and will be part of the decision-making as we go forward, but it shouldn't be the only factor.
Anything else, Dan, you need? from
No,
the
I think we've
board?
got some good questions
Okay.
here. Some we didn't have complete answers yet, but we will
Okay.
work through those and plan to come back to the board with some of the information that Mr. Fisher's requested. In the meantime, if anything else comes up, feel free to get in touch.
Chris or Steve have any other comments? Okay, all right, thank you. Number 8, approval of revised dates for September Board of Public Works meetings presented by Dan Connect, Director of Public Works. Dan. How many times?
Thank you. September is one of those months where the Monday, first Monday of the month, which would be a Board of Public Works meeting night, is the day before the second Tuesday, which would be a council meeting night. So we, in the past, have separated those meetings by a week, and that would put our first Board of Public Works meeting for September on Monday, August 31st. That'd be 2 weeks from tonight. And then the second meeting of that month would be September 14th. And I would recommend your approval of those revised dates.
Motion by Mr. Fisher, second by Mr. Bargander. Questions? Mr. Bargander.
I mean, if there's a possibility where we just wouldn't have enough for a meeting, we could cancel one meeting too. Is that a possibility that we could fit more into one meeting and just skip the other meeting?
Yeah, it's always possible. We would do that if it works out. It seems to me we had something penciled in for the August 31st meeting, but I don't remember what it was. But
Okay,
if it's not urgent, then we can push it off for 2 weeks. So we
Sure.
consider that, sure.
thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Number 9, recommended items for future agendas. Anybody have anything? I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Fire, second by Mr. Bargander. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.